Welcome to this edition of Fourth and State. My name is James Causey, and I'm an editorial writer and columnist with the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel editorial board. Today I'm here with researcher Lois Quinn with UWM, and we're going to talk about the high incarceration rate of black men in Milwaukee and throughout the state. Hi, Lois.
Hi.
Hi. We know that the numbers for black males in incarceration is high in Milwaukee, but you found out that the numbers are like this throughout the state. Can you talk about that?
Yes, we had all been talking about how high the incarceration rates were in Milwaukee County. I was asked by the NAACP for their state branches to look at what's the situation statewide. And so we looked at all the men who have been in state correctional facilities, 1990 to 2012, and the numbers are devastating through the balance of state. This is not a Milwaukee problem, this is a statewide problem. When you look at statewide, for men in their 30s, over half have been in state prison of African American males. It's over 50% in Milwaukee County, but it's 43% in all the other counties of the state combined. So where we've been talking to date about what do we do about Milwaukee, the real question is what do we do about Wisconsin?
Well, why are the numbers so high? I guess that's the key question, but what are you finding to suggest that the numbers should be this high?
It seems to me all the states had these surges in mass incarceration when the war on drugs kicked in with great enthusiasm in the 1990s and early 2000s. But we ended up incarcerating more and more, particularly young African American men, and no one stopped it. The numbers kept escalating. And why we look at the total history, not just a point in time, is because everything we know, both in Wisconsin, Milwaukee, and nationally, says once you have that prison record, it is very hard to get a second chance in the employment field. There are many jobs that are closed to you. There are educational opportunities that are closed. So to the extent that we've locked up young African American men, often for low-level drug offenses or nonviolent crimes, sometimes for very serious crimes, we have not had a plan for where's their second chance, and how do we give a first chance to these young men who are coming into adulthood who aren't seeing job opportunities and alternatives available.
How do you think we get statewide buy-in? Do you think the numbers alone will, get people maybe from Green Bay, from Dane County, and from these other places to say, okay, we have a problem here too, maybe we should buy in, or will it take more than that?
The religious leaders are statewide. The religious community statewide is saying, we don't like this. This is not what we want our state to be. We don't want to be the state with the worst African American male incarceration rate in the country, but we are right now. So I think there's a question of what does Wisconsin want to be. Second question is over half of the people we've put in prison are non-white racial minorities. Why? What are we doing? Why are we investing so much in that system rather than in our educational system, apprenticeships, job opportunities? Somehow there's got to be a rethinking. And what's been of great concern to date for me is that the religious community has been very outspoken, the African American community, not just in Milwaukee, but in Madison, Beloit, Racine, Kenosha, they've been speaking out. But the political powers in the legislature and the governor's office have virtually ignored this. And it's nothing to be ignored. It's defining us as a state. It's limiting our labor market. And it's not fair.
So is it fair to say that in Milwaukee County we have probably the worst incarceration rate in the entire nation for African American men. That part is correct, right?
There's a concern, and I've had reporters from other parts of the country say that to me, that when they saw the numbers for zip code 53206, they thought there was likely no place in the world that incarcerated.
In the world?
In the world. The United States has the highest incarceration rate in the world. African Americans have the highest incarceration rate in the United States, and then we get to a place like 53206 in Central City, Milwaukee, and the numbers are staggering. But then what I found when we looked at these numbers is we were calling that zip code area ground zero. These numbers for Wisconsin are ground zero. These are numbers that if you put them out, a third of the men in their late 20s already having state prison records or being currently in prison, half of the men in their 30s. If you put these out, people would say, you're talking about the worst areas of Chicago or the worst areas of Detroit or the worst areas of Milwaukee. No, we're talking about the state of Wisconsin.
So, I mean, this is mind-boggling. And I know when I write this piece, people are going to say, okay, you did the time, or did the crime, you do the time. So with that being said, you know, how do we make like regular people care? I mean, because some people say, well, they're committing more crimes, but that may not necessarily be the case. I think you were saying when we talked earlier is that you believe that the reason some of these numbers are high is because, you know, cops have more, or police officers have more contact with in poor neighborhoods and poor areas. So it increases the contact between a black man and a cop. But statewide, is it like that, or can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, I wish I knew. You know, in 2008, we had a statewide task force on racial disparities, and they raised a lot of concerns that there was racial profiling everywhere. That not just in the central city, but we were pretty much, I mean, we've changed ourselves we've made African American males a symbol of danger, and we protect ourselves from them, not from criminals, but from them. I think we've given our suburban and ex-urban police forces blank cards for stopping men, driving while poor, driving while black, but mostly targeting African Americans. At the NAACP meetings, you know, people will come and they'll say, I got a job out in a suburban area, but I can't be late for work because the police are stopping me on my way to work. I can't hold a job that way. So it's changed us, I think, in a lot of areas of the state. What's very disappointing is we had this task force. They said, here's 57 recommendations of where we have to collect information on where are we racially profiling, sentencing unfair, is this truth in sentencing driving so much of this, and made all these recommendations. And then we got a new governor, and they took the whole website down. So all that research and all the recommendations, they just went off the site. We can't do that. We want to think about calling a special legislative session on other issues. We worry about freeways. We need 6 lanes, build them. You know, we need a legislative session on black male incarceration. We need it. We need to have statewide leadership. Right now, all the leadership is coming from the black community and the religious community. Almost all. That has to change. We have to get real as a state, get our priorities together. African American males were creamed by the national recession and its impact here. Homeowners were targeted by race nationally and in Wisconsin. Those problems didn't go away. People got hurt, but nobody was there to say, you get to go to the front of the line. You're in the front of the line when it comes to being stopped for driving, but when do you get in the front of the line for job opportunities?
Correct. Well, thanks a lot for this great research, and keep up the good work. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.